Unless you've been living in a cave as of late, you've no doubt seen several high-profile videos showing police misconduct in the extreme. In South Carolina, a white police officer shot and killed Walter Scott as Scott, who was black, was running away. In California, 10 deputies were caught beating a suspect who had fled from them on horseback. And yesterday in Oklahoma, a white reserve sheriff's deputy was charged with manslaughter for killing an unarmed black suspect after the deputy said he confused his handgun and taser. That incident was captured on police body camera as the debate over whether all officers should be required to wear them is picking up steam. Joining us for that discussion and more is Colette Phillips. She's president and CEO, of course, of Colette Phillips Communications. Colette, it's good to see you. Warren Tolman, former state senator and Democratic candidate for Attorney General in Massachusetts. Warren, good to see you too. And Jennifer Braceras, columnist for the Boston Herald. Welcome back. Let me start with you, Colette, if I can. How has this week plus of videos changed the relationship between the American public and its police?
I think that there are three wins for body cameras on police. One is for the police because it gives just total evidence that they either acted appropriately or inappropriately. I think it tamps down the tension that exists between the public and police. And thirdly, I think it saves taxpayers and the government money with a lot of litigation that tends to ensue after you have had wrongful deaths.
So not all of these were on body camera. The last thing was, do you agree with Colette that this essentially case is now slammed shut?
Well, I think it's coming one way or the other, and we're going to have this more and more. I think in Boston's situation, what happened was we had a video, I think, from a barber shop that thankfully saved us from what could have been a real community disaster. But, you know, the long term...
Meaning the Officer Moynihan situation. We're going to talk about that in a couple of seconds.
Who was gunned down. Yeah, but I think the most important component of this is building a link, a trust between the community and the police. And the cameras will be there sometimes. Sometimes they'll be blurred. Sometimes they won't be reflecting what actually transpired. You got to establish that rapport, that community.
But you think it's a good thing to have them?
I do.
Bill Evans, Commissioner of Boston, was on our radio show today, Boston Public Radio. He says they're coming, essentially, whether I like it or not. He's not so crazy about it because he actually, I don't think, agrees with either of them. Jennifer, his view is it's going to break down the ability for us to speak candidly and openly with people. They won't. People in the community won't speak as openly, whether it's a domestic violence situation or they're reporting. You, of course, meaning you agree with him?
Well, I think there are many types of witnesses that police might be interviewing or informants that they might want to talk to who are not going to want to talk if they know that they're being filmed. But it also is a violation of the police officer's right to privacy, right? I mean, how would you like to have...
What right to privacy does the cop have?
Well, I'm asking you, how would you like to have a camera on you all day when you go to the bathroom, when you go to lunch with Marjorie, when you're chit-chatting with your producer?
Yeah,
you want all those conversations recorded
well,
on a
I'm
daily
assuming
basis?
that the bottom line is that there's some procedure which would allow, when they're doing the things you're talking about, not to have it on, but when they're not doing their job...
But the devil is often in the details, right? Because some activists have argued that if the police have the right and the ability to turn them off, they'll be ineffective. So they have to be on 24/7. That's been the argument from the activists. And if that's the case, I think there's going to be a lot of problem with implementation.
They can certainly shut them off, but Jennifer's point, though, raises a larger question, and that is we're going to have so much data from all these different cameras, and they're going to be filed somewhere, and then we're going to spend hours upon hours reviewing them. So Commissioner Davis has a valid point here.
Evans.
Commissioner Evans, who's a terrific, I believe...
Weren't you for these cameras like 30 seconds ago?
No, what I said was they're coming. And I support the use of them, and they can be helpful, but we have to be mindful, A, of what Jennifer's saying, and also the notion we're going to have all this data and all this material and evidence that's going to be out there, and we're going to spend all this time piling through it, and it could be
sort
on
of like
a
Edward
minor
Snowden's
traffic.
take is the NSA has all this data on us, and we don't have enough human power to analyze it.
Exactly.
But see, Colette, if I can,
you layer the Freedom of Information Act requests on top of the data you're going to be collecting, and all of a sudden you're going to have stuff, right? Citizens are going to have access to it. They can put it on YouTube. Let's say the cops come to your house one night, Jim, looking for, I don't know, marijuana or cocaine.
No, that's part of his. No, that's part of his argument.
They videotape the interaction. They find out nothing there. Next thing you know, somebody does a FOIA request. They want the
Freedom of Information.
They want information on the police visit to Jim Browdy's house. They get it, they put it on YouTube. Everything in your living room is on YouTube.
Yeah, I want to switch. I want to talk about another video, by the way, that you mentioned a minute ago. As I said, Commissioner Evans was on Boston Public Radio today. Listen to what he had to say about another video that was not on that list I played a few minutes ago.
It sort of bothers me a little bit, too, that Officer Moynihan getting shot in the face didn't get the play that any other videos did across this country. I've been looking at newspapers daily to see if anyone has run with that video, and no one has.
Now, we talked about it here, Colette, but I think he had a very interesting point that I hadn't talked about. He didn't say it in so many words, but I think the point he was making was the national media is running for any video that shows police misconduct, but it has no interest in video that shows the police did the right thing in the case of Officer Moynihan and Angelo West. You buying his argument?
Well, I think to some extent, yes, but I also think that one of the reasons that we are seeing all of this conversation about police shooting of unarmed people is because it is happening with such high level of frequency.
Well, but let's be clear. There are almost 1 million police officers in this country, right? Upwards of 800,000 police officers. Obviously, the things that have happened have been horrible, but those are small examples of bad apples in a sea of public servants and good people who go out there and put their lives on the line every day for me and you. And I think...
Yeah, but Jennifer, if I can just interrupt, in South Carolina, for example, over a period of X number of years, every single shooting by a police officer, the finding was appropriate. And then and by the way, the mayor and the police chief in the city in South Carolina was ready to say the same thing here until lo and behold, all of a sudden a video showed that it wasn't so appropriate. So
right, and that's why I
there's good
support
reason
the cameras
for some
in the
suspicion,
cars.
isn't
I
there?
absolutely support the cameras in the cars, and those have been effective. But the body cameras, I think it takes it a step too far.
You know, by the
But
way,
I think there is a study that showed, there's a guy by the name of Barack Ariel from the University of Cambridge that shows that in Rialto, California, that it actually had 88% less negative for the community.
Since the body cameras are there.
Exactly.
I want to move to something, but I want to ask a quick question down the line. Are young black men safer in this country today because of the video of Earl Garner, Tamir Rice, a little boy in Cleveland, because of Walter Scott? Are they, Colette?
I think if you were to ask them, they would say no.
What do you say?
I would say that with body cameras, I would say absolutely yes. That
Quickly,
will improve.
if you can, Warren Tolman. Are they?
I certainly hope so. And I agree with Colette. With body cameras, they will be. But again, I think this is more than about video evidence. This is about building a rapport that Commissioner Evans and the mayor and everybody, they called them community leaders. They got the elected officials, the NAACP, the Urban League together, showed them, and the clergy. Remember, if there's a delay between the shooting, and there invariably is, and the time that video was made public, that's when there can be a real cauldron and a real problem in the community. Really quickly,
Jennifer Braceras, what's the answer to that question?
Whether people are safer in light of...
Black men, young black men
I
are
think
safer in this country.
anytime corruption or bad things are exposed and light is shed on the things that are happening, that it brings awareness and better procedures, and yes, so to some extent, yes. But I also think that we have to remember that the vast majority of police officers in this country are putting their lives on the line for us every day.
No one's denying that. Very quickly, if I can, the sentencing phase of the marathon bombing trial starts, as you know, a week from today, at which point the jurors will hear arguments, testimony as to whether or not Dzhokhar Tsarnaev should live or die. And that's an issue that's dividing a lot of people, survivors and families included. A few days ago, the sister of Sean Collier, he's obviously the MIT police officer who the Tsarnaev brothers shot and killed, put a post on her Facebook page. It said in part, whenever someone speaks out against the death penalty, they're challenged to imagine how they would feel if someone they love were killed. I've been given that horrible perspective, and I can say that my position has only strengthened. And she went on to say she can't imagine that killing in response to killing would ever bring her peace or justice. Now, in contrast, Mark Fuckerell, who lost his right leg in the bombing, has come out in favor of the death penalty, telling Channel 5 last January, I prefer people know that if you terrorize our country, you're going to be put to death. I think what he did to a lot of people that day, especially the ones he killed, I think he deserves it. Colette, should it matter what survivors and victims' families think to this jury?
I think to some extent, yes. And even though I am a proponent of, I should say against
penalty.
capital punishment, because I don't think that it deters people. I think that, to me, it would be a better punishment to have this guy have to live for the rest of his life every day having
Well,
to
he
deal
doesn't
with
think
this.
so, because that's what he's
Well,
asking
we're going to
for.
make him a martyr.
Maybe because he hired Judy Clark. To,
He's asking to live, therefore that can't possibly be the better punishment.
I only have
right?
a few seconds left. Well, that's the assumption. Should the jury know? You're both lawyers. Should the jury know what victims, families, and survivors think about what should happen to Dzhokhar Tsarnaev? Should that be relevant to their considerations? Quickly, if you can, Jennifer.
I don't think it should be, because when the government brings a case, they bring it on behalf of the people, all of the people, not the victims, the community at large.
Even though we can't see it. How about you, Warren, to finish
should
it?
She should be able to, yes, victim witness statements,
Yes.
absolutely. But I will say, I remember when Jeffrey Curley, the young 8-year-old Cambridge boy, was murdered. His dad was for the death penalty. Subsequently, his dad had a change of heart. If we had listened to his dad then, we would have done one thing, and now he's, in my view, he feels the same way I do against the death penalty. So I don't think in the heat of the moment, God knows what these people have gone through. Maybe taking their information and their feelings into account is important, but not
not
let
the
it be
final word.
outcome determinative.
Colette Phillips, it's great to see you.
It's always a pleasure.
Warren Tolman.
Thank you, Jim.
Jennifer Braceras, great
Nice
to
to
see
see
you.
you.
Thanks so much.